Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Today I'm with a very special guest, the one and only Ishmael Butler.
Hey.
There we go. I'm happy we finally got to do this, man.
Right on. Appreciate you having me, baby.
So my first question is, I'm really confused about your placement in the Seattle music scene. So I listened to a previous interview, and it seems like you grew up in Seattle, but you're also from Brooklyn, or have ties in Brooklyn and ties in Seattle. I'm really confused on your upbringing in music and which city.
Well, I grew up here in Seattle. I left when I was young, came back for middle school and high school.
Okay.
So I went to Meany, I went to Garfield, and then I left and went back east. After graduation, I went to Massachusetts and then ended up moving back to New York, where I had spent a lot of time as a kid with my father. So I'm from here, I grew up here, but my father lived in the East Coast, Philadelphia, New York, and I would always be back there in the summer times and sometime for the school year as well. So that's why I got links to different places that are pretty substantial. So I see why you might have been confused by all of that.
Got it. So then was Digable Planets formed in Seattle, or was that formed outside of Seattle?
Yeah, Digable Planets was formed in New York.
Okay.
And Philadelphia.
And then Shabazz Palaces was formed in Seattle.
Yeah,
okay.
Shabazz is a Seattle situation for sure.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
The craziest thing about your music is, first of all, I'm someone who loves like the 60s and 70s and like how the evolution of hip hop actually came to be, from like sampling and records and everything like that. Mm-hmm. And the Digable Planets was right in that era, right? So it's really, I loved everything Digable Planets stood for. And then as time progressed, you actually formed into another group that is almost just as popular as Digable Planets, Shabazz Palaces. And with that change, you changed more into like this futuristic sound. Like how did you go from being more of like boom bap, jazzy rap to something like a Shabazz Palaces?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, it's like growing up, you know, you don't really, somebody could see you at 7 and then see you at 14, and then they'd be like, yo, how'd you get this big? How'd you get this tall? How'd your hair grow that much? But you was just going through the process the whole time. So you didn't notice it in increments, you know what I mean? It just was sort of an evolution. But I bet you a lot of it just had to do with the more music that I learned, the more equipment that I learned, the more sort of music philosophy that I became attracted to, was stuff that was more instinctive, and I guess what you would call more wild or more far out. So as I got older, more capable and more mature, I just started making the music that seemed right and seemed natural to me, and it is what it is, you know?
Do you ever feel like you couldn't be this futuristic sound or different sound in the 90s? Was that kind of, do you think that would have been like looked at as too different or too weird and not acceptable in a hip hop realm?
Nah, not really, because 90s hip hop, you had to be, like at that time, we thought we were, you know, there wasn't no boom bap, like it was what it was. Nobody was calling it something in terms of how to identify it, because it was already past, you know, it was the thing you were doing at the time, and you had to be different and original and a little bit, something you had to do had to separate you from the other groups and stuff that was out. There was an aesthetic that ran through everything because of just the stages that hip hop was at. But, you know, we thought we were far out then, you know what I mean? So it's always been about trying to be, not necessarily trying to be different, but trying to be unique.
Okay.
Going off your own instinct to make something that was uniquely yours, rather than trying to copy something to fit into the landscape, you know?
I'm slowly starting to learn about all these different scenes in Seattle. Like I've always been in love with hip hop, but like I went to a pop artist retreat this weekend and I just met all these pop artists, and I'm realizing how I can feel that a lot of my very talented hip hop friends may feel like misfits in the music industry, but then when I took a step back and looked at pop music in Seattle, they're not even a lot of these pop artists in Seattle aren't even connected to the scene, so they had to put on their own retreat and be their own community. And I'm also trying. I've always listened to jazz a little bit. Like I was in band growing up, and I'm slowly learning about like the jazz roots in Seattle. When you were growing up in Seattle, was jazz pretty prominent, or do you think that helped inspire Digable Planets at all?
I mean, it was not, to a certain extent. I went to Meany. I studied saxophone under Wadey Irvin. He taught classical and jazz. So, you know, and then at home, my parents were into jazz. My mother, my grandmother, and in general, like all the people we knew, everybody liked R&B. And then there was a couple people that was into jazz. So you would hear it around growing up before I even really, you know, identified that music and stuff was something I was going to do for the rest of my life. So I just always understood jazz as part of my culture, part of my heritage. And I liked it. You know, I liked the cats that was doing it. I liked the way they sounded, the way they looked, the way their bop was. And I felt a kinship to it. So, you know, back in the days, in terms of like including jazz and rap, cats wasn't really on it like, yo, I'm about to make some jazz rap. It was more like you sampled. Everybody was always looking for a sample that nobody else had. So you was combing through records, and a lot of times some of the flyest shit was on jazz records. So, you know, you would go record shopping, look for the cool covers, and you would try to just find the dopest breaks and the dopest samples wherever you could, and it was often jazz records. So that's kind of how the whole fusion of jazz and hip hop really started, was out of necessity to try to be creatively unique, if you ask me. Now, later on, some people was real determined about it, like, yo, I'm about to make jazz rap. I'm gonna do this and do that. But early on, like the cats that inspired me, Premier, Prince Paul, you know, cats wasn't like, oh, I'm specifically gonna make jazz hip hop. It was just like they was real deft at digging in the crates and finding breaks and stuff and flipping them. And that's how the jazz really got started in the rap music.
So back to like Digable Planets, what I've been realizing with a lot of Seattle artists, a lot of people that say they're successful or actually are successful from Seattle, a lot of them say you have to leave Seattle and then come back. Do you feel like you had to do that with Digable Planets?
I didn't really feel like I had to, you know, but when I was coming up, you know, so after high school, 17, 18 years old, at that time, there was one sort of market that had already been established. And even then, that New York market was in the early stages. So New York was the mecca of hip hop. So it was kind of like, I don't care where you was from, you had to go there to sort of be close to the business aspect of things. You feel me? Because no other places had developed the infrastructure to support any kind of creativity in the hip hop scene. A little bit in LA, but New York was the spot, you know? And it was just also kind of like the spot. Most of the artists were from there, and also LA, but I had an East Coast ties and had flavor out there, and family and friends and all that kind of established. So it was like, yeah, I'm gonna go to New York. And it was kind of like, you know, like if you could make it in New York, like you had to make it in New York, kind of, you know what I'm saying? It wasn't like, oh, I gotta leave Seattle in order to make it. It was just like, if you wanna make it, you gotta do it in New York, you know what I mean? So that was my mindset. At the time, there wasn't that much, like everybody loved rap here. Everybody listened to rap here. A lot of cats did rap here, but there wasn't like no labels or no clubs and that kind of thing that specifically catered to that music at that time. But as I said, it was early in America. There was very few places whose cities had flipped over to have a hip hop sensibility in like 88, 87, you know what I mean? 89.
Wow.
Not really, yeah.
So how old were you, and like how old was Digable Planets when you guys? Did Digable Planets get picked up by Sub Pop, or was that only Shabazz Palaces that got picked up by?
Nah, Shabazz Palaces. That's much later with
Okay.
Sub Pop. But Digable, we talking 90s,
Okay.
91, 92. And we got signed to an indie label that was a subsidiary of a larger label. That's how they used to do it back then. Like
Mm.
most of the hip hop labels were like small mom and pop type labels who would be like have an office up in an office building, you know what I mean, in Manhattan. And it'd be like Warlock or Tommy Boy or Pendulum or Sleeping Bag Records that would have, you know, artists. And then as that started to, the indies started to get picked up by major labels. So they would be subsidiaries of major labels, still operating as they would, but then they had more backing, more money, as videos and touring and stuff started to really become a big part of what hip hop was about and what was needed. So I got on back then with an independent label called Pendulum, which was a subsidiary of Elektra Records, which was a
Okay.
bigger record, you know what I mean, bigger
Yes.
record company. So that's how it was back then.
Wow. Do you think hip hop was ever, when it came to like record labels, it was ever like pure and no one ever really got screwed over in the beginning, or do you think it's always been, because you always hear these like stories in hip hop where like rappers take these crazy deals that end up fucking them over? Do you think it's always been that case, or like when you started?
Yeah, I mean, it's like I never looked at it like that. It's like this. Back then there wasn't no YouTube, no Twitter, no Instagram. So you had to go and really wasn't that many home studios either. So,
Mm.
a label would have to fork over a bunch of money based on your demonstration, your demo, fork over a bunch of money, put you in the studio, get you a video, try to get you shows. So they would end up putting out whatever thousands of dollars, 50,000, 100,000. So in their mind, they're taking a chance on you. So they're not going to let you participate in the in the reaping of what happens after the songs are released at a rate that's that good, because in their mind they're taking risk. They're like, yo, I'm taking this risk. This guy's not really taking no risk. We'll take care of him a little bit, but we gonna take the lion's share of what's generated by what goes on,
Mm.
and then you take that deal. People say it's a bad deal, but it's the only ones that was really available at the time. Cats wasn't, nah, I ain't doing that, man. I need more money. They would just be like, all right, next. You know what I'm saying? So, but the idea was, you come out, you work hard, you do good. The next time you go in for a contract, now you got more leverage.
Got
They
it.
can just do you like they did you before. They can't take your publishing. They can't give you a short advance. They can't demand that you don't get this many points. You can ask for more points. So it's more like a merit system. And the more you participate and the better you do, the less they can kind of punk you or clown you or try to take money from you that you deserve. So I just looked at it like that. The first deal that I did sign, I mean, if you look at it on paper, it's whack. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, nobody else was really trying to give me the chance to break into the industry like that. And I respected that and I appreciated it. So I just took care of what I could take care of at that time.
So music can kind of be seen as like if you're working a fucking office job and you're working your way up in the office in a way, or
For sure. It's like
okay.
any it's like selling drugs or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
If you ain't got no money to buy a pack, man, you nobody gonna give you the work, you know what I'm saying, unless they know for a fact you can get it off. So you gotta prove yourself. That's why it's cool nowadays. If you're an independent artist, you can get streams, you can get Instagram followers, you can have your city popping by selling out shows at the local thing. And now a label come to you, hey man, we want to fuck with you, we want to sign you. And you're looking at them like, well, that deal's not good enough for me. I'm already doing this over here. So you got to
Mm-hmm.
make the pot sweeter for us to partner up, So that's one of the big advantages of nowadays than it was before. Back then, if you wasn't signed to a label, you didn't have no action. You know what I mean?
Wow.
There was nowhere to get out. You couldn't get in the studio. You couldn't press up your stuff and didn't know who was going to play it, who was going to buy it, who was going to promote it, what store was going to pick it. Like, it was just different.
Do you think labels are still important? And with that, I feel like labels can still be important for older artists for sure, because they've already built up that relationship. But for younger artists, do you think labels are important?
I mean, if you take the label, quote unquote, off of what a label is, there'll always be places where people are going to need partners that have expertise, that have systems built to proliferate, you know? So if you take a label, and if a label's looking at you like we trying to do things the old way, you know, we get your record, we give you points, you get the record, then we go ahead and try to sell it. That's kind of an antiquated thing. But if a label's looking at it like a partnership, and they're telling you, hey, we're bringing this to the table. We got these situations, we got these partnerships, we got these relationships. Bring your music in. We can help you get radiate out into places that you wouldn't have been able to do on your own by doing what we do. You do your thing, going on tour, coming up with cool merch ideas, this and this and that. So basically, if a label can have at its disposal a team that can help an artist flourish, then it's not obsolete. But if they're trying to come with an antiquated sort of look of exploitation and like that kind of thing, which is very tough to do. You probably won't last that long if you don't adapt as a label in this day and age. But I'm sure some people are still trying to do it. But yeah, I think labels are cool. They're definitely not as necessary as they were. Like I said, when I was coming up, if you wasn't signed to a label, it was very hard to do that. Yeah. You needed a lot of money.
Wow.
You know?
So with being associated with New York and Seattle, which music scene do you feel like you understand better or connect with better even?
Well, Seattle is my home, you know. I spent a lot of time in New York. I kind of grew up my adult life and young adult life in New York. So I got a lot of love and affinity for that place. The whole Digable thing happened back there, so it's like that means a lot to me. But my blood, you know, is Central District. You feel me, Seattle. So I really see myself as a world person. You know, like I took the game that I only could have got from the streets that I grew up on here in Seattle. You know, and the people that I was around, the young people that, the older people that raised me, the young people that's my peers, and then the young generation that came after me. So regardless of where I'm at, you know, and I'm 10 toes, I'm a Seattle guy. And using the tools and the game that I copped here to do my thing wherever I'm at. So it's always starts from here, but I always like where I'm at. You know, wherever I'm at, I try to make the most of it, try to see the most and get the most out of it, try to stay observant and really childlike, you feel me, when I'm looking around and trying to absorb as much as I can. But I don't really like to compare situations like that because I don't think it really serves me that well. But Seattle is the spot for me, even though sometimes I want to get out of here and go see different things and be other places, get other flavors. But yeah, I rock with the town pretty much.
Was there like a specific intention when bringing like Digable Planets to Seattle, basically, like with all these different, of course there's like Shabazz Palace, KEXP performances, but there's also Digable Planets. Was that intentional, or how did Digable Planets somehow being associated with Seattle come to be?
Just from me being from here, you know, and me sort of founding the group and producing the music, and just like people knowing that I'm from here and that kind of thing. But in terms of bringing the music here and performing and shit like that, like we just been fortunate enough to in Digable to be able to, like, people want to see us perform, invite us to perform, and Seattle's one of the places that, you know, we get to perform at a lot. So it's just kind of like me being from here, but also people liking the music. Those two things kind of meshing together to allow us to really be out here a lot and perform out here a lot and stuff like that.
Do you think the KEXP relationship came from being signed to like a Sub Pop? Because aren't they somehow associated with each other?
Yeah, I mean, you know, just Sub Pop being just the fly sort of Seattle Seminole Maverick kind of label that they are. KEXP really starting out when they did and bringing the aesthetic that they brought with rock and roll, alternative music, the rise of grunge, quote unquote, grunge music and all that. Yeah, like I'm sure that relationship was kind of match made in heaven and remains that way. You know, even as Sub Pop expands its palette and its catalog to all kind of stuff, so does KEXP. So it's kind of like brother and sister sort of marching in step and flourishing together. So that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
Why do you think Sub Pop's one of the only major record labels here in Seattle?
You know, I think people just get they think well, first of all, industries wherever they're established, they want to maintain that establishment, whether it's something you see them doing or not. The record industry, they probably feel like, look, we got these places in New York, everything's there, LA, everything's there, you know? So once that was established, it's like what we call establishment shit. Like once something is established, the establishment doesn't really want too much changes from that. You know what I mean? So I think it psychologically was one part of it, that it was just sort of stamped that, New York, LA. Because you can't say, Seattle got cool labels, but Atlanta, like they got headquarters and stuff down there. But a lot of big cities don't have big record labels there. But the record label that we do have here as being Sub Pop and being who they are, I mean, just to have one is pretty big, actually. But other than that, I don't really know, other than sort of people just being stuck in their ways, really.
Yeah. Do you think stuck in their ways from like a business perspective, or do you think artists, like even these older artists in Seattle that haven't made it yet, do you think they get stuck in their ways as well?
I think all kind of people get stuck in their ways. You know what I mean? It's a complacency, relying on comfortable situations, not being open-minded enough to be able to pull inspiration over long periods of time. I think all industries, suffer from that kind of thing. But at the same time, what has happened here, what has been done here, what has been created, whether or not the world knows about it specifically, is still a stew that feeds, nourishes all the stuff that comes out of here that you may hear about, So I don't really see it hierarchically, like, man, how come Seattle doesn't do what this place has done, this place has done? But I always try to look at it like the uniqueness of what Seattle actually has done and has contributed, and really find the respect and the pride in that more so than what hasn't happened, here.
Right.
I respect what you're saying. I get it when you think of, you look at it globally, but at the same time, Seattle's responsible for, like, I mean, you could even just look at, let's say, like, just different cats. Quincy Jones, Jimi Hendrix, Kurt Cobain, all of the quote unquote grunge artists, like, that's some of the hottest shit ever in the whole world. You know what I mean? And yeah. if a city was able to get one of those cats into the pantheon, they would be happy and proud of it. But we just keep coming with different stuff like that. And it's like, who can really say that?
Right. That's a very good point. I appreciate that perspective. So, are you happy with the music scene? Like, do you ever go to, like, Seattle concerts, or before the pandemic? I guess not really right now, even though things are slowly opening up. But, like, how as someone who's older now, though, do you think it's important for you to have ties to up and coming artists in the Seattle music scene or go to these shows? Or
I mean, in my opinion, it is. I'm not gonna say what another motherfucker should do, but
mm-hmm.
personally, I feel like music is about experience and energy for me. Like I said, not for everybody. So I do like to go out and kick it, and I do like to go see groups and bands and go to parties and stuff like that because yeah, I am older now and I don't do it at the rate, you know, that I obviously used to, and obviously feel different ways about some of the newer stuff. But I always recognize any limitations on something that's new. That limitations on fucking with it is in me, not the thing. You know what I mean? So I try to keep an open mind and rock with shit and taste it and see, you know, try to get, like I said, make the most of it or find the most in it. But yeah, I like to go out and see groups and bands and all that kind of stuff. Like, I feel like it's good for your creative energy, you know? And just for your life. And, you know, it's good to like stay active and move, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How have you stayed away from being just complacent? And you're obviously continuously evolving. If you just released a single like a month ago and that was everywhere, everyone was talking about it, right? But then you came from an era where I'd probably say more than half your peers were probably one-hit wonders. And then how did you stay away from just being a one-hit wonder?
Well, I mean, in a way, I still am a one-hit wonder because like Cool Like That was basically the only hit, quote unquote, that I really ever had, you know, in terms of like selling, becoming a platinum single, all that kind of shit. So I actually I respect one-hit wonders because, like I said, when I was coming up, like I would go to record labels with my demo tape. This is when they were just in office buildings, and you would walk into the A&R guy's office, and he would have a stack of tapes 6 feet high off the ground and all that, hundreds of them, maybe even thousands. So if you did get through all of that gauntlet, somehow get signed, somehow get your record made, somehow get it pressed up, somehow get it released, and got a hit out of it, you did the dance, you know what I'm saying? As far as I'm concerned, if you didn't never do shit else.
Wow.
But for me, you know, I always knew that I really like music. I like grooves, I like melody, I like dancing, I like just doing the things. So I done been through a lot of different career realities, up and down. But through it all, I always, you know, been into music and liking music. And I don't expect anything from the music business other than what I worked for and put into it, you know? So I just feel like, yo, just keep working and coming up with new stuff, putting it out, gravitating towards the people that dig it, seizing the opportunities that come my way. And that's really my outlook. You know?
How do you find your like demographic and who's listening to you? Because I know I really don't want to compare Digable Planets to Shabazz Palaces. It's just actually pretty. It's inspiring to me, and I feel like it's inspiring to other artists to find artists who can reinvent themselves and still stay in the music industry. Some people try to reinvent themselves and nothing comes of it, you know? So when do fans from Digable Planets, did they stick around for Shabazz Palaces, or was it too different of a sound for some people?
Some, you know, some like, you know, you that's the thing, like you know, it's fans, and then there's people that appreciate you. You know, a fan is just like, yo, like a lot of times fans, that's why I never like to make the same thing over and over again, because fans might be mad at you if you do something different than what you did before. Feel me? So they're not really a fan. They just like something you did. The minute you don't do that no more, they're like, I ain't fucking with that no more, you know? So I don't really think about it. I feel like if you make your music and you put it out, those that like it will gravitate towards it. It's like a beacon that you put out sound, you know, and then people respond to the sound, and y'all had this conversation, and conversation could be in videos, then watching your videos, to downloading your music, to coming to your shows, to all kind of stuff. But that's the vibe, and that's the conversation. But shit, I forgot what you asked me. Do you know?
Oh shit! I was just saying, when you're looking at your audience and your demographic,
Yeah.
how many people do you feel have stayed, or how many new fans have you gained from like the different sounds?
That's interesting. I would say the thing is, when we perform with Digable, it be cats in the crowd that they young, like they wasn't around when Digable came out. You know what I'm saying? But they somehow picked up on it later on, and now they rock with it. You know, which is always crazy and amazing. As well as the old heads will come out and be like, yeah, you know, I remember this, and I was here when that happened. So it's a good mix. I would say like a 60-40 old heads new on the Digable. On the Shabazz, one of the coolest shit that happens is when people be like, man, I was listening to Shabazz. I didn't even know you was in Digable Planets. You know what I mean? Like, that's always cool too. So, man, it's a crapshoot on how you're gonna reach people, what they're gonna think, and you know, it's any combination is possible. That's why you can't really trip on it unless you're making like, you know, pop music where you know, hey, these people listen to pop audience. You know what I mean? So you got to make this kind of thing, and it's gonna go here, and then it's gonna be consumed by them. That's more product based. It's like getting dishwashing liquid. You want that Mountain Fresh scent, or you want the lemon scent? Oh, I like lemon. Okay, well, you know you're getting that every time. But this style of music is like you kind of put it out there and see who answers the call.
Wow. And you've had some pretty dope artists that have answered that call, even like a Flying Lotus. Like that's right in their wheelhouse. So it's cool to see that there's genuine artists in the industry that know what you're onto. You know?
Yeah, that's very special. That is cool.
So tell me, who the fuck is Purple Tape Nate? Is that you, or like I'm really confused on? Is that a persona or?
Purple Tape Nate is a person that at the time when we was rocking and was involved in another deal situation and couldn't really flex as himself, but wanted to flex with me, so we just did it under a moniker. You know what I mean? That happens a couple of times in the Shabazz Palaces world, you know, or, you know, instead of relying on a person's name to add value to something before you even hear it, let the music do its thing, and then see how people react to that too. Just kind of like doing performance art, like messing around a little bit and adding a little spice to the story, you know?
Wow, dude, have you ever checked the Reddit threads on who Purple Tape Nate is? Is it Purple Tape Nate?
Nah.
Oh, there's Reddit threads. Some people think it's your son. Like who? It's craziness.
That's cool. That's cool.
When is there going to be a song with you and Lil Tracy? Even like he's been in your music video. Like
yeah. Well, actually, we have a lot of songs together. We haven't released any that's credited as such. But yeah, man, I mean, we talk about it all the time. You know what I mean? You know, we probably made 9 or 10 songs together. Yeah.
That's so crazy.
And he's actually very, you know, in terms of like my outlook on music, in modern music, my relationship with him and my daughters, you know what I'm saying, they keep me like fresh with the new stuff, you know what I'm saying? Because like old school cats, if it don't got a certain sound, a lot of old school cats will automatically shut down to it, you know? But I like my kids and respect them. But like I said, I love them obviously, but I like them as people and their tastes and stuff, how they develop their own shit outside of whatever I was hitting them with. So I'm able to like, you know, hear a lot of new shit, but I understand how to listen to it now more. And that helped me like get involved, you know what I'm saying? And yeah, that helps me a lot in my musical outlook.
It's wild that you guys are from two different generations, and you each have like, whether you guys see it or not, diehard fans. Like you guys both have made a different generation of music. Like Lil Tracy, Lil Peep sound.
Yeah.
There's kids that are just
Oh.
that's their Jesus.
Yeah, I was in LA and he's living in LA now. You know what I'm saying? His sisters will tell you this too. Like, like I was in this studio by Venice, working on some shit. He came down, and so for lunch and shit, whatever, we kicked it. We went to Venice, got some shit to drink, walked up and down, and like you can't go 10 steps with that dude. Like,
Oh man.
and you know, a lot of shit happened. A lot of times it would be like people would be like, "Yo, man," and like show a tattoo of Peep or something like that. You know what I'm saying? And that's when I always knew that it was huge. I mean, they got like videos and shit with like 1 billion streams and all that kind of shit. You know what I'm saying? So, but it's ill to see how many people really, you know, felt Peep, you know, that feel jazz and that are, like you said, they're just like real diehard fans. You know what I mean? And most of them are pretty cool too. Like they look cool, they're real respectful, but they like excited as well. So it's cool to see that.
It's wild. Because I look up hip hop so much, like, you know, like my Google ads or Google News will always be like hip hop related things. So literally 10 minutes before we got on the Zoom call, this is somehow an article, like a Lil Peep, a Lil Tracy mixtape just got put onto streaming services after 5 years. And like that's what's making headlines right now. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah, he was very like just like, so when he was younger, he lived here for a while, and he was in middle school at the time, and he was like not really into going to school that much. And me and him would like be at odds just about, you know, whatever, doing your homework and shit like that, you know. But so then later, but he was always into music. He would sit down with the guitar and just mess around with it for hours and shit, mess around with the equipment for hella. And I realized, like, okay, like he definitely has the interest and the passion to sort of work your way from beginner to being able to do shit. And I that's when I realized, okay, he's got what it takes. Obviously, his mom is hot too, you know, so he got the music shit from both sides. But the little guy knew, man, that he just had a plan from when he was really young about the rap game and how he was going to participate in it. And he ended up really like seeing that happen, making it happen, you know, like, and it was real organic, man. Him and his guys were just doing their thing, like coming up with the styles that they felt like doing, and it was different than other motherfuckers shit. So it's just like, what can you say? They did it on their own. They did their own thing. He was always like, he never was like, Dad, do this for me, or Dad, help me do this. Like information wise, maybe, but in terms of like, he always wanted to do his own thing and let it be about him, that and his music and his guys, that's what he was getting credit for. So
wow,
that's what he did. You know what I mean?
Do you think he recognized you as an artist yourself, or do you think he just thought of you more as, that's just my dad?
No, he did. You know, he recognized, because he's very observant, very keen, and he was around during the recording of Black Up, which I recorded at the house. He was there, you know what I mean? And he was also there for when I put out the first 2 Shabazz CDs. I didn't put my name on it or no Digable stuff, you know? And I think he, you know, he was like, I see, you know, like you want the music to be how you get to a place rather than who you are, who your parents are, what your name is, that kind of thing. So wow. Some of those things I think he just picked up game just by being on the set at the time. You know?
Wow. Did you ever get the chance to meet Lil Peep?
I never met Peep.
Wow. You know what's crazy? I actually met someone that was associated with you when I first, because this podcast has been around for like 2 years. So when I first started, I tried to find like all these different programs I could be part of, and one program I came across was Totem Star, and I met Thaddeus Turner through Totem Star. So that's crazy. That's like a full circle.
No doubt, that's my bro. When I got back to Seattle, and like I think it was maybe like, man, I forget, maybe like 03 or 04, he was in this group called Matu with Reggie Watts and a couple other bad cats, but it was like a indie rock kind of sounding group. Dad was playing guitar, and I got back. I went to see him at the Sky Church, and when I saw him play, I was just like, yeah, I'm about to start playing guitar, you know. So I ended up meeting him, getting cool with him, and now that's my big bro. But he taught me a lot of stuff, music stuff, guitar stuff, really pushed me into another direction in terms of writing music and recording music. And him and his brother Gerald, who plays bass, we had a group called Cherry Wine together that was before Shabazz Palaces, but we signed to a label, and then the label ended up like going out of business before the record came out. So yeah, that's my big bro in many ways. You know?
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, one of my final questions for you.
Mm-hmm.
What's with you and muscle tees?
Oh, so I wasn't ready for that. So I don't know, man. I like the freedom of just having my. I didn't have a shirt on at all. Like all my friends tease me, like they'll call me on FaceTime, be like, "Oh, you got a shirt on? What's going on with you?" So I don't know, man. I just always like to have a shirt off, but if I do have it on, I like to have them as much freedom as possible. So I'm always cutting off the sleeve.
Wow.
All
and yeah. Can you break down your music video? I really enjoyed it, but I'm still confused on. There's definitely a deeper meaning for it. So can you break down like you seeing yourself at the pool, and then at the end of the video, you're at the pool, and then vice versa is up on the balcony?
Yeah. So the video is called Selfie Side, right? So it's like death by selfie, you feel me? So it's like I took that that word and sort of the scenes that play out in the video is kind of like a metaphor for that, where it's just like studying yourself, studying your own image. You can get replaced by the veneer of yourself and find yourself outside of yourself, looking back in and maybe not recognizing what you have become, spending so much time paying attention to yourself, you know?
Wow. It was beautifully shot.
Thanks. That's my man Stephen Gray, man. He's a cold cat. We do a lot of stuff together. He's been making his bones in Seattle, directing, cinematographer for a long time, and we got a lot of stuff coming too. So shout out my man Steph. A lot of cats on the hip hop scene known from working with him too. So yeah, he shot that video, and that came out pretty slick.
Hell yeah. Oh, two more things.
Okay.
When I was searching through YouTube, looking at your guys' old interviews, festivals, I thought it was cool that in one way or another, like you're associated with Tyler the Creator. So that's dope that you guys have performed the same festival, and you have that interviewers talk to you about that.
Yeah. I mean, it was cool. Like our Future and Shabazz kind of was coming out at the same time. And I'm a big Earl Sweatshirt fan, so I got a chance to meet him at a couple of the festivals as well. But yeah, we started rocking as their phenomenon was starting as well. So just being able to see that and get to run into them cats here and there was definitely hella cool.
Has Shabazz collabed with Adult Swim yet? I feel like that's just something that.
Yeah, we've done. You know how they do the singles, Adult Swim singles. I think we've done 2, and they've used some music for a bump or 2. I think they used Shabazz and Flying Lotus for a bump, and yeah, we've been in a singles club for a couple of times, or at least once, I'm sure.
Wait, was Four-Ray Runner on? Was that an Adult Swim?
I think they might have used it for something, but I don't know for sure. But I was an Adult Swim fan long before I've even thought about Shabazz Palaces, so it was crazy to get those calls, man, and get to work with them cats.
Wow.
Fly shit. You ever seen Off the Air?
Yes, I love all that shit.
That shit's amazing, bro. That shit's amazing.
I just want to let you know, as just a Seattle being, I'm only 20, and I have come to realize like how important, whether you see it or not, you are to the culture of music, to Seattle. And I really do appreciate you taking time to do this, man. And I think that Seattle is like we're so lucky to have a Shabazz Palaces and Ishmael Butler.
I appreciate that. I appreciate you having me on and being patient, because I know I'd be sloughing sometime. But shout out Seattle, man. Seattle's a fly place. I appreciate everything Seattle gave me. All the old heads that raised me up, all the blocks in the city, the Central District, South End cats, Valley cats, West Seattle cats, all that, man. Seattle's a dope place. All the young brothers and sisters out there rhyming and doing their thing, putting Seattle on the map, keeping it there. Young people doing their podcasts and all that cool shit, man. I love it all. So stay up and stay strong with it all.
Hell yeah. What's the easiest way for people to reach you?
On Instagram, Shabazz Palaces, Instagram.
There we go. This is the NAST podcast with
Ishmael Butler.
There we go, sir. And we did it. I'll probably be releasing this close to the end of this week, but I'll keep you posted on the release and everything. And I really appreciate you doing this, man.
All right, man. Good luck with everything, man.